The Stormlight Archive is my favourite series currently in the works. It is the definition of grand high fantasy, set in a mystical world with a sprawling cast of flawed but inspiring characters and many unique and epic creations and forms of magic. Stormlight is simply one of the most epic stories I have ever read. And with the first 3 books already out and the 4th coming just around the corner in November, it's the perfect time for a newcomer to jump right into the series. That's where I come in. This is why you should read The Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. Hello there, my name is Jasper and this is Legends of Jasper, your weekly fantasy content. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe, and if you end up liking this video, then also click the like button. But hey, if you don't like the video, that's fine. Click the dislike or whatever you want to do. That's absolutely fine. Anyway, without further ado, let's continue and on to why you should read the Stormlight Archive. Let's go. The series is set on a world called Roshar, a planet where a constant ravaging of vicious storms from the east called high storms have forced the flora and fauna to adapt. Animals and plants have evolved to have shells or other protective casings. Human habitations are built up on the east side to protect from storms. Society has also developed around these storms as the storms infuse gems with light, which are the currency and the lighting of many Rosharan societies. There are also many nations, each with their own unique culture and history. The landscape itself really feels like something out of a sci-fi novel. Throughout Roshar's history, the people have fought off these cataclysmic events called desolations. Remaining from these ancient times are shard blades, massive swords with the ability to cut through objects and sever the souls of life forms. And there's also armor called shard plate. Now they are enchanted and intricately crafted, which rebuilds itself, and they also enhance the user, so they're very cool. Also remaining from this time are the class systems based on eye colour. Bright-eyed individuals are the nobility and dark-eyed the peasants. A section of the plot revolves around this gap in social class and the inequality there. If this all sounds incredibly cool but also really complicated, don't worry. The Way of Kings actually starts off quite slowly as it introduces all the characters. While yes, this does make the beginning of the book quite slow and you're not really feeling a place to ground yourself, it does mean that you can get introduced to the world at a very digestible pace, so you're not just thrust with everything at once, so don't worry about that. Speaking of characters, they are without question my favourite aspect of the Stormlight Archive. In the first book, The Way of Kings, you follow 3 main characters, a number that expands in each subsequent book. Firstly, there's Kaladin, a slave who has been beaten down repeatedly but has the overwhelming desire to protect, something that seems impossible until a strange spirit-like being called a Spren begins to communicate with him and things get very weird very quickly. The second character is a young woman named Shallan. She's trying to be apprenticed to Yasna Kholin, a scholar, heretic and sister to the king. Only Shallan's family has fallen on hard times, and it is up to her to save her family, even if that means revealing a dark past and committing crimes against Yasna. Ooh. The third and my favourite character is Dalinar Kholin. Uncle to the current king of Alethkar, Dalinar was blackout drunk 5 years ago when the previous king, his brother, was assassinated by a group of humanoid species known to them as the Parshendi. Now, Dalinar is simultaneously trying to victoriously avenge his brother's name by wiping out the Parshendi and also keeping his son, the king now, alive. Only this becomes more difficult when Dalinar starts to receive visions from what claims to be his god. Well, what claims to be his dead god. All of these characters are strikingly human in design and struggle with relatable issues, whether it be Dalinar's PTSD or Kaladin's depression or Shallan's, well, spoilers. You really grow to just love these characters throughout the series, and their development is just some of the best that I've seen in the entire fantasy genre. The place where all of these characters begin, and then if you look at the place where they end up, is completely different, especially for characters like Dalinar, Kaladin, and Shallan, the three main characters. And another interesting thing is that Dalinar and Kaladin have already done tons of development, because they're not, well, Dalinar especially is not a young person. And so you start off with development that's happened, that's been bigger than most fantasy series, and then they have tons of more books of complete change and character growth. It's incredible, but I won't spoil anything here. Now, let's talk about the magic. I won't go into too much detail here, but I will say that the magic is based around Stormlight, and has characters performing all kinds of incredible abilities. And in case you're not familiar with Brandon Sanderson's work at all, that's absolutely fine. The Stormlight Archive was the first series that I actually read by him, and I ended up really enjoying it. It's just very long. I will say, if you haven't seen it, I'll just add here, the magic systems in the Stormlight Archive and all of Brandon Sanderson's books are very structured. They're called hard magic, which means that they have rules and regulations, but also very clear consequences. So you know that if you do this with the magic, this will be the outcome. It's not satisfying in, oh, what will my wizard do next? I have no idea. Instead, it's, I know what my wizard can do, how will they utilize what I do know in a creative way to get out of this situation? Which in Brandon Sanderson's work is incredibly satisfying to read. Let me address the elephants, yes, elephants in the room. Elephant 1, you might not want to commit to an unfinished series, Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, and Elephant 2, you might be daunted by the sheer size of the series. I mean, the novels are all over 1,000 pages each. While, yes, there are admittedly only 3 books out of the planned 10, although they are going to be split into 2 story arcs of 5, Sanderson writes insanely quickly and has so far released one of these books about every 3 years, and that's alongside multiple other books too. Plus, the books are so dense that you'll want time to digest them, trust me you will. That brings me to my next point. With each book being 1,000 plus pages, they are some mighty big boys. However, with the world being in a pandemic now, you likely have the time, and even if you are busy, there's no rush. Take your time. Use an audiobook on the way to and from work. And in terms of the size, these books are so good that I doubt you'll have trouble getting through them once you get going. The first book does take a bit before it really does start to get into action. I mean, the first 5 chapters all have a different character's perspective before you start to repeat the same character. It's crazy. But be rest assured, it soon settles down, and as long as you're focusing on Dalinar, Kaladin and Shallan, then you'll be fine. You'll be fine, trust me. While you can just read Stormlight on its own and enjoy it perfectly, the series is actually part of a greater universe by Brandon Sanderson, known as the Cosmere. Several of the side characters in the Stormlight Archive come from other books, and these crossovers are so satisfying if you recognize the characters from other series. But they are by no means necessary, and you could just as easily get introduced to these characters through Stormlight and then see them in their own novels afterwards. That's what I did. On a slightly separate note, Brandon Sanderson is one of the best authors when it comes to communicating with his fans. He keeps progress bars on his website, which let us fans know how far he is in any current projects. and he also does a weekly YouTube stream where he answers fans' questions. It feels great having an author that outwardly appreciates and interacts with his fanbase, so that's something to note as well going into his books. So those are just some of the reasons why you should read the Stormlight Archive. Anyway, that is the video. If I've convinced you to read the Stormlight Archive, let me know down in the comments, because that would really make my day. And if you've already read it, talk about it with me. Talk in the comments, say, hey, I really enjoyed this moment, this is my favourite character. I am doing a top 5 Stormlight Archive moments soon, that's coming very soon, so make sure you subscribe for that and like the video, so it really helps me out with the algorithm and all of that. Let's try and get to 400 subscribers in the next week or so. That would be incredible. Anyway, my name is Jasper, this has been Legends of Jasper, and you guys have a fantastic day. I'll see you all later. Bye bye.